Hello, hello. Welcome to today's session of Selling the Couch. I hope that you are doing well, having an incredible day. So, I know that many of us are thinking about our websites, especially in this world of AI where things seem to be changing so fast. I know many of us are wondering, like, are websites even worth it in this day and age where it seems like both Google and all of these AI search engines are pulling not just information from websites, but also from our social media posts, from YouTube videos, all of that stuff, podcasts, and how what is the point of a website? And more specifically, how can we use our websites to shape a client's first impression? I'm joined by Sarah Gershon from strongrootswebdesign.com. Sarah and I connected on LinkedIn. She specifically works with mental health providers on both website design as well as SEO services. And we're covering a number of things on this conversation. We start out with when a potential client lands on a therapist website for the first time, what are they actually looking for? Sarah's learned quite a bit in just working with a lot of therapists build out their websites. And then some of us are really wondering if websites even matter, especially with social media and directories and now AI search. Are therapist websites still worth investing in? And if so, how should we start to think about it? And then the other questions that we talk a lot about is how do we build websites and content that sounds authentic and true and values aligned without it sounding salesy? And then we wrap up with this conversation of if we can all make one practical but powerful step in our websites in the next month, what would that be? I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. It's full of really practical wisdom. So here's my conversation with Sarah Gershon from strongrootswebdesign.com. Hey, Sarah, welcome to Selling the Couch.
Hi, Mel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to have this conversation.
We were talking, just right before one. It's been wonderful to connect on LinkedIn. I'm really glad that you reached out. Even the way that you post things is like so thoughtful. And
Oh,
when you leave comments, it's thoughtful. So I always feel like comments are like a reflection of the type of people, we are. And so really appreciate that. And then we are totally coordinating. So if you're watching on YouTube, like it was meant to be. So
I know. It's quite the vibe. We've got teal, blue. Yeah, it's
yeah,
very
yeah. We're very ready for spring, especially here in the Northeast after this brutal winter with snow and all sorts of madness that was happening here. So
Yes, absolutely.
I'm excited for our conversation because I feel like there's so many things that are happening, namely AI and its impact on websites. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to market our websites? What does it mean to market our practices in this day and age? And specifically, this conversation we're having today about how our website shapes so much of a client's first impression. I'm excited for it and excited to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I shared some questions with you, and I wanted to start with this one, which is when a potential client lands on a therapist website for the first time, what are they actually looking for in those first few seconds that you've seen?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question because it helps us understand kind of what you need to focus on when you're creating that website and kind of thinking about it from their perspective. And I really think that a potential client is thinking, first of all, if they feel safe when they look at your website. Do they feel like this is a place and a person representing a relationship where they're going to be understood? I think they're looking for connection in terms of like, is this a person or a practice where I feel like someone would understand me and have a real ability to recognize, empathize, and understand the different challenges that I'm facing in a way that would actually be helpful and productive. And I think the last thing that they're looking for is hope, in the sense that a lot of people have been struggling with whatever issues or problems for a very long time. when a person comes to a therapist website, you're often not the first place they've gone looking for a solution or for steps or for different ideas about how to approach making things better. So they're really looking for a reason to believe that you have some expertise that could actually help them to move in the direction that they want to move. And so you want to create a website that makes them feel like, okay, this is a space where I feel safe. I feel like I could express parts of myself that are vulnerable. And I feel like if I do that, it might actually have a consequence that would make things better for me.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. I think two things resonated. One is, I think, especially with AI and stuff, and more, I saw some like several reports recently how so many folks are using AI as sort of a pseudo therapist to get advice, right? So it's very possible even before they land on our website, they've probably used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or something like that, right? To
100%. And it's also very possible that they typed into ChatGPT, I'm looking for a therapist who does X, Y, and Z. What should I do? Or I'm having X, Y, and Z problems. What should I do? Right? So technology is becoming kind of the intermediary between you and the people who need help. And so what we have to do is figure out ways to make that intermediary an advocate for them getting the right kind of help rather than a barrier that's feeding them bad information and bad suggestions that's going to keep them from getting access to the actual help that they need.
yeah. The other thing you mentioned was safe. That was the first word you mentioned. I
Yeah.
mean, in our space, that makes perfect sense, right? But I was thinking like, I don't know if you go to like facebook.com or whatever, like that's not the first thing they're thinking necessarily of, right? Like,
No, no.
right. Yeah. And it's such a unique nuance that we have to consider for, as mental health providers.
Yeah, most places that people go on their computers or their phones are trying to get clicks. They're trying to get a reaction, they're trying to get engagement. And a therapist website is not a place where we're trying to get maximum engagement. We're trying to get a safe passageway between that first interaction when they come to your website and then that first appointment when they're actually talking to you. And we're trying to make that connection as friction free and easy as possible so that they can get to you without having to jump through hoops or feel confusion or feel uncertainty.
It's good. I have a question, but I'll save it for later. I'm just going to
Okay.
make a note of it. But I did want to shift a little bit. So I think many of us are wondering if websites even matter anymore. Social media, I know that's social media posts are kind of an algorithm factor, right? As are directories. Although, that's definitely changing a lot as some of these bigger companies kind of infiltrate that space. But also now AI search. So why are therapist websites still worth investing in?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I mean, I think the truth is that the internet is becoming the main setting for a lot of communication and a lot of life choices that people are making in every direction. And your website as a therapist is the one piece of the internet that you own, that belongs to you, and that you can build according to your values as a therapist and according to the way that you want to present yourself to potential clients. When we go on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, we are following the rules of that platform. We're functioning on a platform that we don't own and don't control. And no matter how great your posts are, they're always going to be sandwiched between other content that you don't have control over and that could be very, problematic or whatever. But when you have your own website, that is your chance to make your voice heard in a way that you are actually the author. You're the person who decides what goes on your website and you're in charge of it. And so that is a kind of empowerment that is more important now than ever before, especially because there are so many places out there where the voices of really thoughtful solo practitioners or group practices or people in private practice are getting drowned out by these very large conglomerations that are you know, offering a very different approach to care that is much less personalized and much less effective. And
Yeah.
so the website of those private practices becomes so much more important because that's your chance to get seen and get heard and to share your message. Um, and the internet is where people are going to go, right? When they're looking for something, this is where people go. And I think that with the, all of the changes that we're seeing with AI, and we're only at the beginning, it's going to, you know, we're going to see over the course of our lifetime, so many big shifts that are going to happen because of this technology. It's like living when the printing press was invented, right? Like we're going to see things change. But that makes it even more important for us to have a part in this conversation, right? Because ChatGPT is going to read your website, right? So you are going to be able to say your piece and participate in the conversation. But if you don't have that piece of ground, if you don't have that stake in the internet world, then you're going to get left out of that conversation. It's going to be really, really hard to get heard. So I think it's important for therapists to have that voice.
Yeah, I think that's just a wonderful way of putting it. Even like, I forgot, yesterday, I was just like I'll randomly look at like what stuff is available through like Claude or ChatGPT about me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what I noticed is, I mean, very consistently, it's pulling from website information, i.e., like the Selling the Couch website. You
Yes.
know, who is Melvin Verghese? Like, what is, and then things like, I asked it like, what is his like online reputation? Like all these kind of questions, and it's very consistent. It'll
Yeah.
pull in like, for example, like definitely on YouTube. I pulled in some LinkedIn posts as
Yeah.
well, but the website was the one kind of consistent thing. And I love that you said this really is the thing that we can own, that's
Yeah.
not quote unquote like algorithm driven in a
Yeah.
way that, like many of these platforms are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I remember this was a conversation I had a number of years ago with someone who used to work at Google, and he was like, I think the key thing is always to go from like rented real estate to owned real estate. And that's our websites.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know, this AI, I mean, I love that you likened it to the printing press, because I think we are at the forefront of something that's just, I don't know, it seems like new stuff is coming out like by the hour, and the
Yep.
ability to do stuff. But it really, I don't know. I think the other thing for me, I think a lot about is what mediums allow us to communicate our authentic selves, and I feel like a website absolutely does, because we can authentically communicate who we are and what we stand for and who we work with and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives us an opportunity to have really a direct conversation
Mm.
with the potential clients, right? Where you're able to say exactly what you want to say to them directly, and it's not coming through the filter of someone else's, platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, one of the other questions I think many clinicians struggle with is they want to design a website, but they are so worried. They want to design a website that reflects their values, their personalities, their humanity, but they're so worried about like being salesy, because
Yeah.
either because that I mean, including me, we've been like conned by somebody that's like overly sleazy, or it's also, I think we're all aware. I mean, we're talking about folks' mental health. They're already
Right.
vulnerable.
Right.
So, how do you find that balance, I guess, in designing a website that reflects values and personality without coming across as salesy?
I have so much respect for the fact that so many of the therapists that I talk to in the course of creating their websites or doing SEO for their websites, this is one of their main concerns, right? And it's like so important to them and so much a core of who they are that they don't want to be salesy, and they're not a car salesman, they're trying to help people. And I think that all we need to do is have a perspective shift. Don't think of your website as you're trying to sell your services. Think of your website as an opportunity to educate people and to advocate for them. Because people get so many messages all over the internet about why they're not good enough, about why they're failing in this thing, or they need to do X, Y, and Z. Your website and the message that you present on your website can be like, hey, you're having a hard time. That's okay. Lots of people have a hard time. Let me help you feel less ashamed. Let me help you feel more empowered. Let me tell you why what you're experiencing doesn't mean anything bad about you, and your situation can get better, and you have options. And then once you think about it that way, you're not trying to sell somebody a used car, right? You are standing up in a sea of information on the internet that's all about how they're not good enough and all the things that are wrong with them. And you're the opposite voice saying to them, you are okay, you're going to be okay, and there's help available to you in the various struggles that you're having. And that's such an important message for people to get. And I really think that once therapists can get that shift, then they feel an urgency in having a website and having that message out and sharing those insights and that hope, because then they realize that it's not that they're trying to sell something, it's that they're offering something that people may not be getting in other places that's so vital for those people's well-being.
Yeah, I think this is such a wonderful way of looking at it, because I feel like naturally many clinicians are great at advocating and empowering and educating. And it's like we're just doing that through our websites. And it feels like, I don't know, I think this is still a work in progress for me, but I think leading with acknowledgement and education has been such a big unlock for me, because like I would read some of these. I remember like back in the day, like I'd read these like sales pages. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never want to write something like this, right? But I think, but it did cripple me for a long time, because I just kept thinking like, is this what we're supposed to write? But this doesn't feel like how I show up in the world, you know?
Right. And what I often say to people is think about it this way. Imagine there's a person who's having a struggle and they go to their computer and they're looking for help and they come to your website. Let's make your website a place where that person is going to leave having benefited in some way, whether they work with you or not. So we don't need to think about your website as, oh, I'm trying to convert, because we're not in the business of converting, right? We're like in the mental health field, that's not the goal. But the goal is to create a site where if somebody who needs support comes to your website, how are they going to feel supported? What are they going to learn about the situation they're experiencing that they didn't know before? What are they going to see that's going to make them feel validated, that's going to help them feel less afraid of expressing what they're going through? What are they going to see that's going to give them a reason to think that things can get better even on hard days, right? So how can the website be a tool that's going to benefit people? And one of those benefits can be that people find a wonderful therapist who's going to help them to heal. And other benefits could be education, empowerment, destigmatizing, right? There are all kinds of things that your website can do, and all kinds of ways that it can be, a really powerful tool. And when we think about it that way, I think that it takes a lot of that fear away.
I think it's a really great way of putting it. I think also for someone that is hurting and maybe considering therapy, I mean, my feel on it is they're probably visiting a website multiple times, right? So the first time it just might be, goal might just, they might just be like, oh, wow, that's a great website and I feel affirmed and understood, right? But they may click through 2 or 3 times before they actually book that call. And so I think what I'm taking away from what you just shared is maybe putting just less pressure on ourselves to like quote unquote convert from the first website visit on.
Yeah, absolutely. And realize that your website is going to have a part in the journey of a person who's going to one day be your client, potentially at different points in their journey, right? So a lot of times someone might mention you have word of mouth, a person hears your name, they're like, oh, that sounds like somebody who might be a good fit for me. And then they Google you and they go to your website and then they think about it for a bit. And so there's a whole process that can take place, but the website is going to be there throughout that process to kind of provide that positive connection and that opportunity.
Yeah, well said. Uh, a website, is an asset that can definitely compound over time, and especially I feel like with Google's like new EEAT sort of
Yeah,
updates and all that. And
yeah,
feel free to jump into that, like if you'd like. I feel like therapists are so well positioned to be able to speak with authenticity, expertise on our websites, because it's also what Google is rewarding, as it should, because it just seems like to make the most logical sense, versus AI generated content or like this mass blog production kind of model.
yeah. And if you think about it, therapists have such a unique opportunity to create exactly the kind of content that Google is trying to prioritize, because therapists are literally sitting down and talking to their clients and understanding their clients on such a profound level. And so then the question becomes, how can we identify what people are dealing with, thinking about, struggling with at the beginning of that process, and talk to those people effectively on your website in a way that they understand, right? So I think that the big challenge for a lot of therapists is that they're really good in session talking to someone and listening. But then when they go to write, a lot of times there's an academic tendency that's based on all of the amazing schooling that you've had so that you could do the important job that you do. But the disconnect between the way you talk to your clients in the chair and the way that you write can sometimes be pretty big. And so to make the website effective and to make the content effective and to make it powerful, both from an algorithm perspective and also from a personal connection perspective, is we have to take that academic language or that very clinical kind of insight and kind of set it aside and figure out a way to communicate on the website in a really, really valuable, easy to understand, accessible way. And I think that therapists have such an advantage because you have your notes from every session and you can say, this week, did I have 3 clients who came in this week and said this, they were struggling with the same kind of thing? Okay, so like what blog post can I write about this topic? And it's a tremendous advantage. And also there's a challenge there in figuring out how to translate all of your insight into a really accessible language on your site.
Mm. As you're talking, I just keep thinking like it's such a worthwhile thing to like set aside 30 minutes a week just to look at your case notes for that week and
Yeah.
just figure out like, hey, these are some broad patterns that I'm seeing, respecting individual client confidentiality, but
Well,
yeah.
yeah. And I always tell people the initial inquiries that you get from potential clients, whether they're through email or voicemail or your contact form, those are such important messages to save. Like have a folder on your computer, and every time a potential client reaches out to you, save it. Because even if there's just 2 sentences in that message that says, I'm going through X, Y, and Z, or I'm experiencing X, Y, and Z, or I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, it's so important because they're using the words that a person at the beginning of the therapeutic journey is using, right? So they're using the language that a person who has trauma uses before they know that they're traumatized. They're using the language that a person who, is in an abusive relationship is using before they realize that they're in an abusive relationship, right? So they're in the pre-therapy stage. And those are the people who it's so important to talk to effectively, because those are the people who need therapy the most. So when we write on our websites, it's so easy to use the terms and the terminology and everything that we understand about the people that we're treating. But that language that we get and can learn from our clients early on is so important to remember, so that people who haven't gone through therapy yet will still be able to recognize themselves and know that you can help them. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of like systematic idea capture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I mean, I've noticed this with selling the couch. When I already have a repository of ideas, it's much easier to script a solo episode or an interview versus like just sitting down and thinking, okay, what were like what, And yeah, and I think I don't know, my sense is capturing that and then capturing sort of your unique stories and personal connections to that topic
Yeah.
is really like two such valuable ways. If you can really figure out how to thoughtfully capture that in
Yeah.
a slow compounding kind of way, I think it just has so much impact.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is that each therapist is a unique individual who's going to interact with their patients in a way that no other therapist would, right? And so when you're able to get some of what makes you unique onto your website and into the voice of the content on your website, it's going to help people really connect with you and to know that you're going to be an amazing fit for them.
Yeah. Well said. Sarah, the last question I had for you was, so a therapist, someone's listening to this, they want to improve their website in like the next month. What's like one change that would make the biggest difference, especially in light of AI, Google's
Yeah.
recent updates, like all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think an easy, not easy, simple, which is not the same as easy thing that people can do, is to do an audit of the content on their homepage, right? So you could even copy all of the content from your homepage and put it in a fresh document and read through it without any of the images or the spacing or whatever, just read it and read it from the perspective of a person who is looking for support and doesn't know anything other than that they're in pain, right? And then be very honest with yourself. What information are you giving that person? Where is your focus? How are you guiding that person to the next step, right? And one of the things that I think is really great to do very early on in a homepage is to say something like, you may be experiencing, and then, give, like, basically normalize, right? Lots of people experience this, and then say, this is how I help. So you have both those pieces of normalizing, telling people this is something, you're not the only one going through this. And the other side of that card is that there are proven methods that I've used with other people that can make this better. So really just doing an honest audit of your homepage language and seeing, how are you talking to people? And are you telling people really clearly what to do next? Because people who are looking for therapy are carrying such a high cognitive load already. So they shouldn't have to do any guesswork or any thinking to know what the next step is. So the next step, right? They read a paragraph on your website and then it says, click this button and, schedule a free consultation, or, send me a message and let me know, like, whatever the process is that you use when you're intaking or like talking to potential clients, make it really explicit. Tell them exactly what to do. Tell them what to expect. Take the guesswork out of it so that they know, okay, I'm going to fill out this form and I'm going to hear back from someone within 48 hours. And this is what's going to happen. Just make it really, really make this part of the process so easy for them because they're already doing so much. So how can we make things smoother for them in that process?
What a wonderful way to like say that. I think, uh, you know, because they are in such a level of distress, right? And I think another way I've been thinking about it is like we think about the initial 15-minute consult as the initial part of the therapy session, but really it's the website, right? Like having a simple like click here to schedule, right? Like that is part of therapeutic rapport.
Yeah. And I think that because we live in a world where, this is what you do every day, right? You talk to people who are in therapy every day. So it can be easy to forget that there can be a significant barrier for people of uncertainty when they're making that first contact. And so the more you can do to help them understand this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to work, and just to walk them through that so that it takes some of that anxiety down is really, really powerful.
Awesome. Sarah, I'm so grateful for you, so grateful for our time. Where can folks learn about you and about the good work that you're doing in the world?
So my website is Strong Roots Web Design. So that's a great place to come. I'm also on LinkedIn, and looking forward to connecting with people.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you really specialize in website design as well as SEO kind of.
Yeah. I work specifically with mental health professionals. So I do websites and search engine optimization for therapists, group practices, psychologists, anyone in the mental health field.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey there. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Sarah, and especially if whether you have a website or you don't have a website, or you're thinking about tweaking your website and how all of it matters in this world of AI. I hope that today's conversation has just been really helpful for you. I was really struck by, just to be fully transparent, I think now being here in the past year, especially as AI has, infiltrated so many parts of our lives, and I find myself less searching on Google, but using things like Claude to do searches. I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between, like, how do we get found, and how do I create content in a way that is sustainable? I loved what Sarah said about the website being that place where we own access. It's not quote unquote driven by like a social media algorithm. But how do we do this in a way that authentically communicates what we stand for? I mentioned Google's EAT criteria. There's actually a solo episode that's going to be coming out at the end of this month about that and why we should really lean into that, especially as clinicians. But Google's EAT criteria basically says that Google is now de-emphasizing AI-generated content, but more content that highlights things like experience and expertise and authority and whether the person has trustworthiness. So things like that they probably should have done a long time ago, but I think it's a ripe opportunity for us as clinicians to be able to really stand out and get found not just in Google, but in AI search as well. And the other thing I loved Sarah's practical tip. I'm actually going to do this on the Sign the Couch site and on the Quiet Builder site of just auditing the homepage and just seeing if we need to make any tweaks. If you want to incorporate some AI into it, what you can then do is copy and paste the actual materials on that website, the actual text, and then say, I want you to imagine that you're my ideal client, and describe who your ideal client is, what they might be coming in for. And I want you to scrutinize this homepage and give me recommendations in terms of what's working well, where I can improve, and what is missing. So it might be a really interesting prompt just to play around with. Sarah's doing some pretty amazing work in the world. So if you need some help with either website design or just SEO, especially AI SEO, definitely reach out to her. Her website again is over at strongrootswebdesign.com. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.